Welcome to Panels and Borders. I'm Dominic, and this is another episode of Comic Covers. And this week I'm going to talk about a comic cover that ties into a 80s toy line. And this 80s toy line was developed by Coleco. And Coleco was famous for their ColecoVision, and they, had their gaming platform. But then they decided to throw their hat into the arena of action figures. And they did it with Sectaurs. Warriors of Symbion. And actually the guy over Waspax there actually had him, and actually seems like a pretty good deal, $2.99 each for these guys. And you can see here more box art from the Sectaurs. Now the Sectaurs were an interesting toy line. I only ever had one of them, and there was a lot of companies that were throwing their hat in the ring and competing with Mattel for because Mattel had He-Man, Masters of the Universe, and that was just huge when I was a kid. That was huge, and it was my favorite toy line, He-Man, Masters of the Universe. So other companies were kind of throwing their hat in, trying to develop toy lines based on like fantasy, science fiction type stuff, like He-Man did. A few of them tried, some a little bit more successful than others, but this by Coleco, this was a valiant effort. And I had one of these toys, and I thought they were genuinely really, really cool. Now, the figures came with a lot of like holsters for their weapons, and they came with a lot of accessories and things like that. Now, there's probably a lot of different reasons why they didn't catch on or why they went out of market, but from my memory, from what I can remember, is they were quite a bit more expensive than a He-Man figure, and I think that's why I only ever had one of them and didn't get more of them. So that might have played a factor in it, but I'm not sure. So the comic book cover I'm going to talk about this week is Sectaurs, Warriors of Symbion, number 6, May 1986. Writer Bill Mantlo, penciler Steve Geiger. And this is the comic cover right here. Now, this is one of these comic covers that when I was a kid, every now and then you'd be out with your parents and you'd be looking on the newsstand and just some random comic would just jump out at you, and you'd want your parents to buy it for you. And this was one. Now, there was more. When I was a kid, I only had this issue. That was it. I didn't get the other ones, and I didn't get the other issues in this series until I was an adult. And I found them all together in a back issue bin and got them all on the cheap. But this one I had as a kid. It's the only one I got. I didn't find the other ones. And that was kind of a problem when I was a kid because we didn't have an actual comic book store in my town. We didn't get one until I was a teenager. So the whole time growing up as a kid who loved comics, sometimes it was hit and miss at the newsstand. Sometimes they would have a comic, so you might get this issue, but then you might not be able to find the rest. They wouldn't order them in, or they wouldn't show up, or whatever the case may be. So, it was kind of spotty collecting. But this cover really grabbed me. I really liked that it showed all the heroes, falling over and in some kind of dire strait situation, and it made me really want to read the cover. And the pencils on the cover is just really good, really straightforward, that really great artwork that you've seen in a lot of the Marvel comics of the 80s. And I like the red theme to the cover and the simple Sectaurs logo there, just in white and black font. And fantastic cover. And as you can see, all the heroes are falling over with some kind of weird smog that's tinted red with a lot of bones and carcasses in the background. So this comic, I really enjoyed this comic as a kid, and this cover really jumped out at me. And Marvel used to do a lot of these toy tie-ins. They didn't so much. They actually started their own line called Star Comics for toy tie-ins. They did He-Man and Care Bears and stuff like that. And the Power Pack Kids, that was also a part of it, even though that wasn't based on a toy line. So yeah, this was a really, really great comic. And this cover right till this day, this is my favorite cover of all. I believe it's 9 issues in this total. But this is my favorite cover out of all the issues, and I think it's pretty cool, and it really jumps out because you got to grab it. You got to wonder what is going on with the main characters here. Why are they all like been defeated and slumped over? So yeah, it was a really, really awesome cover. And it was a fun time to be a kid. And it's great to find when you come across these types of comics in back issue shops and stuff like that. It really gives you a great feel of nostalgia, reminds you of your childhood, and Reminds you of a more innocent time in your life when you were a lot more ignorant about the world and the realities in it, and you could really get a lot more engrossed in fantasy and fiction than what you can now as an adult. So that's everything I got to say about this cover. Tell me what you think of this cover. Were you a Sectaurs fan or not? So let me know in the comments, and if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up, and I will see you at the next one.